So a few months ago, I bought this house, and originally I was planning to just do some cosmetic things. The most major thing was moving a kitchen. Then I realized the house has some more serious structural issues. Wait a second, I think that's just the movie Money Pit with Tom Hanks, but I found myself in a very similar situation. Once I started opening up some walls, I realized that there was incredible amounts of termite damage. There's a beam holding a brick wall that's entirely deteriorated.
So I've discovered a lot of stuff through the process of opening up these walls, but to be honest, this is the one that scares me the most.
And I had to go back to the drawing board and rethink what I was gonna do with this house. There's a lot of home renovation channels here on YouTube, and I think the one thing I want to be sure to convey is the reality of a renovation project. I feel like a lot of times things look a little bit too smooth, and I don't know, people might just be hiding some of the paperwork and logistics behind fancy editing. But I want to be very transparent with you about how much things change through the process and how this really works from the perspective of someone doing this for the very first time. I've never bought a house before, I've never renovated a house before, so all of this is very new to me, and I'm just kind of stumbling through this whole process. And luckily you can follow along to maybe learn some things not to do. With that, first I want to talk about how this project will actually be constructed. So the house is in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. This is another difference between some of the other DIY stuff I've seen on YouTube. I live in a major city, so the bureaucracy involved and the permitting and licensing and restrictions are much more strict. There's added complications of like, I don't have a driveway to put a dumpster in, so I need a permit on the street even just to get a dumpster. But more than that are the restrictions of who can actually do the work. So in the city of Philadelphia, you're required to have a licensed general contractor even to be able to get a permit for this type of project. Now, generally, this is a good thing because in a big city, like I'm sharing walls with neighbors, and if something catastrophic happens with my house, it's probably going to affect the neighbors too. So you don't want some, DIYer going in and knocking down walls because that could cause big issues for the whole neighborhood. So for my project, originally what I was planning to do is get a general contractor for the major stuff like structural framing and everything, and then I could save some money by doing all of the finish installs, the fixture installs, putting in a kitchen. This would save a lot of money, but when I started to talk to contractors, the problem always goes back to liability. So many contractors just weren't really comfortable with me doing work on the project. They would essentially be falling under their insurance and their responsibility because their name is on the project. So if I put a nail into a pipe or a nail into a wire and start a fire, technically they would kind of be liable. So it was tough to get someone to sign off on me doing this work. Another factor of having to work with a GC is, of course, they have to get paid. So a GC fee is typically like 20 to 30% of a project cost. So I'd be looking at like $30,000 to $60,000 paying a company to essentially just manage all of the different subcontractors. And the thing is, I don't have a full-time job. I'm an independent artist and I kind of work project to project. And my last project, which I spent like 3 years on documenting these beautiful Art Deco skyscrapers, has kind of come to a close. So I have a bunch of time to pour into a new project, which I decided would be this house. So I want to be on site pretty much every day, documenting the process anyway. So I feel like it would just be an overlap of work, and to have to pay someone to basically do the job that I want to do just wasn't sitting right with me. So luckily, after a lot of conversations, I think I figured out the path that I want to go down. Okay, this is how to become a licensed general contractor in the city of Philadelphia. Wait a second, I didn't even realize that was an option. You can do that? Yeah, you most definitely can do that. So I was actually surprised to learn that it is actually possible for me to get my general contracting license. And this is gonna solve a lot of issues for me, but it's gonna require just a few things, the last one being probably the most time-consuming and frustrating. So the first thing, I need insurance, of course. I need like general liability insurance as a contractor. I'm gonna need builder's risk insurance, which insures the house if someone's not living in it, which typical homeowner's insurance won't do. The city also requires that I have car insurance for some reason. I don't own a car. Maybe now that I have the insurance, it's a reason to get a pickup truck to make this project a lot easier rather than having to take the subway every time I go to my house to work. The second thing is generally a general contractor is going to be required to provide workers' compensation to all their many employees. I don't have any employees, so luckily you can also just provide a notarized letter saying, I don't have any employees. And the city will essentially just waive that requirement. Now, the final piece of this puzzle is I need an OSHA 30 certification. So if you don't know OSHA, they're the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It was basically invented to keep workers safe that are, working on dangerous construction sites and with hazardous materials and everything like that. Luckily, you can take this OSHA 30 course online and it takes 30 hours to complete. So most of this week, I just spent in front of a computer, taking copious amounts of notes and learning some relevant information, but also a lot of irrelevant information for my project, how to weld safely. I don't think I'm gonna be doing that. Be safe operating a crane. Hopefully I won't need to use a crane for this project. So very shortly, I should have a certificate that I can then send into the city with all that other paperwork and become a licensed general contractor. And then I can put my own name and my own insurance on my project, which means I can do a lot of my own work. Of course, I'm still gonna be working with subcontractors to do the big things like structural framing, like plumbing, mechanical, electrical. I'm not gonna have any hand in that. But this will allow me to do miscellaneous tasks, in between, like doing a lot of the demo, and of course my original plan of doing a lot of the finishes. So this route of GCing my own project might be a little reckless because of course I don't have any experience as a general contractor, and you can definitely run into some issues if you don't coordinate the project well. This could result in having to spend more time. Let's say if the coordination falls apart between the framing and the mechanical and the plumbing, and you can't get something in, and then you have to add a soffit that you didn't want, or you have to reframe something, or just general project management of having a project schedule and a project budget. All these things really help to keep a project in line. So part of why I decided to go this direction is because I have some great partners. One of the general contractors who came and walked through the site actually recommended me to go this route, and then they can be consultants on the project without having to share any of the liability. And I'm excited to introduce them next week. I have plans to go through some of their other sites and talk a little bit more about how they're going to be involved in the project. And we're essentially going to do a work share where I can help them with their business on the social media, marketing, content side, which is, what I specialize way more in than I do in construction. And they can lend their expertise in project management and giving me all the resources I need to keep the project on track and, finish it out nicely. This video is sponsored by, it's sponsored by me. So you may be familiar by now with my photo series called Rowhomes, which I completed in 2021. It documents 100 old row homes all across Philadelphia. You're probably familiar with these images because I've been using them as the thumbnails of this project, and it's really what inspired me to embark on this whole renovation project in the first place. Now, for clarity, these images are not made with AI. They're made before generative AI really even existed. So each image is meticulously crafted in Photoshop by myself, a process that takes many hours. But for clarity, the thumbnail images, I do use some generative AI because the base image is a vertical orientation and I need horizontal for the thumbnails, but it's pretty minor, just filling in the backgrounds. Now, I've been doing photography and digital art for nearly 10 years, and printing my own images has always been a really fun part of that process. So I chose 4 of my favorite Rowhome images to offer to you as prints. And the fun part is Each image is also going to come with a historic nail taken out of my Philadelphia home that dates back somewhere in the 1800s, and you can use that nail to hang up your image. And I just love that these nails now are taking on a whole new life. They've been stuck in this house holding up my plaster walls for 100, 150 years, and now it's a chance to ship them across the whole United States and maybe even international, if international folks want to print. So I just love that these nails have this wonderful second life of holding up a beautiful Rowhome print. So if you want to help support the project, definitely consider picking up some art. Thanks. So the first big changes we talked about are how to actually get this project built. The next set of changes I want to talk to you about is related to design. So the original plan of the house was to keep the footprint pretty much the same, but adding an addition on the third floor on the same footprint as the second floor. This is a tiny house, and the bathroom that was existing was super small, so it was a real challenge to make these bathrooms actually work, and even at that, they're pretty tight, and they have to encroach into the back bedrooms, making those bedrooms even smaller. And with the design I came up with, I figured I could live with it, but it's not ideal. So with these plans, I've been going through the process of getting permits, and it's taken like a month, even though I paid extra money to have the city review things faster. It still is several rounds of review and coordination between the city and my structural engineer. Finally got to a point where the permits are ready to issue, and all I have to do is add in the contractor information, and then I could have my permits and I could start actually working on this house, which obviously I'm really excited to do. And it's been so long twiddling my thumbs through this bureaucratic process that I really want to start. But this new information came to light that is making me question everything. In this project, it's really hard to fight the urge to just keep moving forward on these old decisions that were made that are maybe now in question just because I want to get the project done, when maybe waiting another month to change the designs and make it a better project is probably going to be worthwhile in the long run. So that's exactly what I want to do. So a couple weeks ago, I got a note from my neighbor who's also planning to renovate. Now this is new information and I already had my permits submitted, but I realized this might be a good opportunity. So me and my neighbor's house are pretty much exactly the same, and we share an alley that goes underneath both the houses in the front, and then it becomes an open alley in the back. Their plan is to just tear down the back section of the house, and they're gonna build up, and on the second and the third floor, they're gonna cantilever over this shared alley up to the property line. So this introduces some opportunities for me where I could do the same, and I can capture a lot more square footage. It could potentially solve some water issues in that alley because now it becomes a covered alley. And it also helps the thermal performance of the building because now you're sharing a wall between two conditioned spaces rather than having a wall that's going out to the exterior. I proposed this idea a couple episodes ago, and a lot of the comments were about weighing the natural light versus the extra space and extra cost of this proposal. And I think I came up with a good compromise between both. So rather than doing this cantilever over the entire width of the alley, I decided that maybe I'll only do half of it, essentially over where the bathrooms are. Now, one of the reasons is the joists under the existing bathroom are already a mess. They already have to be replaced, so the idea of just replacing them with longer joists that are cantilevering out to give some more room for these bathrooms that have been tough to work out seems like a smart idea. And by doing only part of the alley, now I can have a window in my shower, which I'll probably have frosted glass or something to maintain privacy. But I love the idea of a window in the bathroom to make that space bright. And also, it's not cantilevering over the whole alley, so now my window on the first floor kitchen can still maintain a little bit of light to the living space down there. Another change I'm proposing on the third floor, because this is all new framing, so it's a lot easier to change, I want to cantilever the back section of the house out 2 feet, which is going to give me just a little bit more breathing room in the bedroom in the back to kind of make up for the fact that I don't want it going out covering the alley for those light reasons that I mentioned. So thank you for bearing with me through this part of the project that's just bureaucracy and not a lot of work getting done. Nearly all of this week was just sitting in front of my computer, working through these design changes and taking this OSHA 30 course, but soon enough, we're gonna get back into that house and we're gonna, start tearing out all the radiators and the plumbing and eventually knocking down all the walls and eventually rebuilding. So if you want to see how all that goes and also see the many mistakes I'll probably make along this process, definitely consider subscribing, keeping up with the project. And yeah, I hope you enjoy these videos. They're fun to put together. So with that, I'll catch you again next time.